produce something new and exciting for yourself, maybe for others. That's one concept of education. The other concept is essentially indoctrination. Indoctrination.
Let me tell you what society told me. This is about ideology. Raise one fist in the air for solidarity.
We've been robbing kids of resources and
These Kevin Riggs reports at UC Davis, the chancellor's proposal will likely mean staff layoffs and hard to get classes.
Now tell me how I'm supposed to respect the Constitution when it says that the rest of the person is the right solution, steadily questioning all education.
UC Berkeley, esteemed as the #1 public university in the world and the place where 3 undergraduates, Martha Hernandez, Michelle Garcia, and myself, Kayla Love, find ourselves united in exploring the purpose of education. The bells of Souther Tower hang in the air, a place where I've gone to contemplate such matters before.
Sometimes it all seems like a big joke. Pay to learn what they teach and ends up broke. No jobs, unemployment on the rise because they live in a mansions, never look into our eyes. So disconnected that they don't be related because we're just a commodity in a college corporation. So you understand why I gotta make it out of single.
It's a Friday afternoon and I just got off of work, so I decided to hit up one of my old high schools. Well, 2 of my old high schools. The first one being Redwood High. I ended up here in Marin County because I was taken out of my home by Child Protective Services. It was definitely a culture shock because Marin County is extremely affluent and predominantly white, much like Redwood High School. I was curious to find out what these students thought about education.
Learn, and also it can, if you have a good education, it's easier to get a job, and it can kind of give you a good foundation like for your future.
Essentially to get a better job later in life.
Okay.
Yeah.
To
keep, like, I guess, an informed society and kind of keep a standard.
All around good experiences. All my teachers have been really great and really supportive and also there to talk to, not only just educate me.
Aspects of education are like they let you choose what classes you take as electives, but you only get 2. And I think a lot of people don't like what the classes they're taking, they just take them to get the credits.
Yeah, I feel like for me, it's definitely like where I live, like in Marin, it's easy to get a good education, and I definitely feel like well prepared for my future, but I know that in some other places, the schools are different and maybe not as good, so it's harder to get a good education.
Yeah, people with more privileges and money, have more resources. I think it's easier to get into colleges.
I think that with Redwood too, because we're just really privileged to go to school like this too, where we have like a lot of money and like the things we need to go further, and that's like what they prepare us for. I think that with Redwood, like going to school at Redwood, it makes it a little easier for people who want to go into college.
Just in Redwood's backyard is an alternative independent high school called Temescal, which I attended for my senior year. It was here at Temescal that I met Chuck Ford, a teacher and leader of the team program, a 1-year-long experimental college preparatory program that's been around for 22 years.
Schools should be dealing with the whole student and not just the disparate academic parts. I think problems with modern education in the high schools is that it's done on an industrial model. And this is the antithesis of that. Big schools, like Redwood High School down the street, are really based almost entirely on curriculum. And this school, not only teen, but the independent study part of Temescal, is based on relationships. That it is largely experiential. And we've got 4 core experiential strands: community service, career exploration, ropes course leadership, and wilderness adventure. The wilderness adventure is really the heart and soul of the program. We only spend about 40 days out on the trail, but those 40 days that we spend is when the class comes together as a group. And one thing that's remarkable about team is that, you know, the friendships and bonds that the students form are really different in both degree and quality from the kind of things that can happen in a regular high school. It doesn't, quote unquote, scale up. That's number one. And number two, this school district is making an effort to service all of its students at the big high schools. I think without recognizing that the nature of big high schools is a problem for many of the students.
Education can come in so many different forms, and I don't think necessarily that the education system we have right now is the one that's going to benefit society, just purely because of the fact that I don't believe that going to school and sitting in a chair for 8 hours, telling us to memorize things, to take tests, to do things in order to get better grades, to do things in order to get into pristine colleges that'll eventually get us jobs so we can make more money. I don't think that our entire center of like who we are and what we're going toward and where we're supposed to be going should be based on the fact that we want a better job when we're older. And I think that the fact that so much of what we do, not even with school, with everything economically and whatnot, even in our own relationships, all of that being based around money and all of that having the same, smashed in the same box of cheap, better, this is what's going to better you, and this is the same exact formula. This is the same exact thing that we're all going to tell you what to do, and this is how you're supposed to succeed. Telling people that this is either fail or success, that I think that that's what education is right now.
What we have here cannot be replicated in a big school, but they're going to try. And the thing about that is that it's not such a small program. There's 24 of us, but each 24 of us have we have friends, and we have families, and we have supporters, and we have people that we work in our internships, and those are employers that we form relationships with, and our fellow people that are in those work environments that we form relationships with. And all these relationships that we're forming is from this one program, and we wouldn't have had those otherwise. So I don't believe that this is a small program, and I don't believe that it's only affecting the 24 of us, because it's affecting really hundreds of people in this one program.
This is Ms. Shaw. On Saturday afternoon, I interviewed 3 Hispanic UC Berkeley students. My motive was to represent the Latino community at this university.
Well, I think that the function of education is to create like a workforce, so to educate children into becoming socially functioning adults. So how to follow rules, how to work with other people, we learn about law and we learn about how our society works. But I think it's also a way into brainwashing kids into American ideas of nationalism and the American dream. So this idea of upward mobility that doesn't really get, that the system doesn't really have a way to enforce or to help kids reach those dreams. It's just if you work hard, you'll get there. If you work hard, you'll get there, but there's really no way to do that.
I think as far as grade school goes, education is supposed to personally build you for the outside world. I feel like when you're in high school, you socially build yourself to be able to communicate. As far as college goes, basically to learn, prepare yourself for the real world.
The function of education is to build better socially and individuals, and to help them integrate and help out the community as they grow older.
I think education should teach people how to think and how to question and how to criticize, because usually the school format is this is fact and this is what you learn, and they kind of have you memorize things as a kid, but you never really have the opportunity to ask if it's true or not or where it came from. And I think that unfortunately that's something you learn at the university level, but it would be really helpful if we started creating minds that can think and ask questions more than just memorize things.
Make money. I think it's supposed to make money. That's how I've been taught. Coming from a family that wasn't very financially stable, that's what I've been taught the purpose of education was.
Well, I think it definitely should be to help build students into better individuals for the community, but also to help them know how to solve problems when they're older and, be able to get better jobs and interact better with their families and other people in the community.
I think it's accessible. I don't think it does what it should be doing for everybody. I think I can go with my experience. I live near the borderline of LA County and Orange County, and I live about 5 minutes away from the best high school, one of the best high schools in the country. I think it was ranked number 3 when I was a freshman here. So you would walk by and you would be like, MIT is coming, or Stanford is coming, Stanford representatives on their little thing. Well, in my school, the day I got accepted to Cal, 2 teachers were like, oh, you got accepted. It was something that they were not expecting. And I think that comes a lot from the resources that we didn't have. My school only offered 6 AP classes. I took all 6 of them. No, I didn't actually. I took 5 of them. And a lot of people didn't know about the SATs, and they didn't know that they could talk to someone. Our counselor, one of our college counselors, advised one of my friends who's undocumented to go to the community college because there was no way for her to go to UC Santa Barbara, which is where she was accepted. So I think that the lack of resources for the different students that live under underprivileged communities is not the same as people who live in the neighboring city with really high incomes and really good programs to help them get to college and to other things that they want to do.
UC Berkeley has built a reputation of being a place of protest. This is no surprise given its history of the free speech movement led by Mario Savio in the 60s. Recently, things came to a boil when student protesters were beat by police at Occupy Cal. The movement even attracted national media attention.
These free-thinking Berkeley students did not obey authority. So the university called in a team of skilled crisis managers to defuse the situation with a rap session. Jim? Wow. Looks like they were really making some breakthroughs there. When they say Berkeley is crunchy, I didn't realize they meant the students' rib cages. And spearing a small Asian girl in the spleen first shows Berkeley's admirable commitment to diversity.
That small Asian girl is actually a woman with an opinion on the educational system, and my friend, Yvette Filarca.
We see a situation where the UC system and UC Berkeley, has created and set up a program where they created a partnership with one of the worst polluters in the world, British Petroleum, and set up a $500 million for-profit partnership with this international corporation in order to aid British Petroleum and their whole project toward finding more profit, claiming they're doing it through biofuels. Nobody buys that. Really, in the end, to try to encroach on what's happening, what's studied, what's researched, and what's said and stated in the classrooms here at UC Berkeley. And it's had a chilling effect on everyone on this campus, both the resegregation and the privatization. It's why last year, when Occupy Cal demonstrated and set up the tents in November, it's in the end why Bergeneau and why the administration set those cops against us, against the students and against the protesters. They wanted to send a message to their corporate sponsors and to future corporate sponsors. We will treat the property of this public university as if it were the private property of BP and a corporation. And just like BP would not tolerate tents and protesters on their private corporate grounds, well, don't worry, this administration will back up these private corporations. To me, I really agree with W.E.B. Du Bois when he called the purpose of education as one that should release the powers of a human being or of a society and the people in the society. Because to me, that's what public education should be. That ought to be the purpose of education. And there's a reason why the history of public education in this country was one that took a civil war and the freeing of millions of black slaves, and then those very freed slaves fighting to make free public education a right and a path toward empowerment, a path toward leadership, a path toward full participation, but also self-determination in the society to make that one that was a right for everybody. And so, to me, that's what education should be. That's why it's so popular. That's why people believe in it and fight for it so much. But that's also why it's under constant attack. And we've seen it under more attack now over the past few years than I think we've ever seen.
The role of public education in a society should not have to fluctuate in accordance to current political thought. There is a lot of potential in what good public education can accomplish if properly structured. In a time of so much turmoil and chaos, for many, education becomes a beacon of hope. In the case of low-income students, excelling in education is the path out of the ghetto. I know that was the case for me. My parents always told me, study hard and it will pay off. Looking back, it's extremely sad to realize that there are only a select few each year that will be able to accomplish this. The dropout rates, the number of deaths, the increase in pregnancy rates are all cries for help, crying out that something is wrong. Our priorities as a nation need to change. Many of you may have witnessed firsthand the atrocities of poverty, of lack of resources, of the downward spiral in our public education system. There will be times when we will be swallowed by darkness. The world will beat us down. It will crush our dreams, it will destroy our ideals, and we will be defeated if we let it. Regardless of our grades, regardless of our degrees, regardless of where we come from, what I have learned is that the only thing that matters is what we do with what we have, our education.
To help children, you don't necessarily need, a MSW or an MA in this or an MA in that. You just need CFS, which is common fucking sense.